fact is, we all have been domesticated. We all have beliefs within us that we don't want to hold, whether it's about money, love, ourselves, our worth. We all have so many beliefs that were not chosen by us consciously, and that is why we need discernment. But we all outsource our discernment, and that is a first-class ticket to a life you actually hate. Discernment is leading you back to yourself when the world has taken you so far away. So how do we practice discernment? Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome. I'm so excited to be here filming today because I took a break. I was feeling very uninspired and very unaligned. You know, when you just get that voice in your head that's doubting every single move you're making and wondering, are you enough? I don't know. I just spiraled over the last few weeks and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a step back and reassess, realign, and then come back. So I'm back. I made it through the spiral and I'm really excited about today's video because today we're gonna be talking about discernment, which, if you want the literal dictionary definition, it's the ability to judge well. And discernment is a skill that we all need to be cultivating and practicing in our lives, right? Because everything is discernment. You wake up and you do things with your day and you make decisions, and discernment tells you, is this aligned or is this not aligned? Is this something that makes me feel good or not? Discernment is just the ability to distinguish. But judge well, that's so subjective, right? Because judge well according to what? Judge well according to society, according to my parents, according to my friends, according to what exactly? Because it's such an open-ended definition. To me, discernment is the ability to judge and make decisions in a way that allows us to align with our intuition, our inner truth. I've had this interesting thought for the past months. Right, I'm studying abroad in Italy, so obviously I'm very surrounded by art and a lot of sculpture. And I feel like so many of us think, including me, I used to think this way, that we are something that we build, that we are something that we go out and find and create and build. And when you build something, right, you're taking external resources and making something out of it. And I'm not saying there is no constructing of identity, but more so a sculpture, right? It's like a big freaking rock and you're chipping away the rock until you get to what is underneath. And that is the way I see us. I think we start from nothing and we go out and find things and create something. I think it's the opposite. I think that we are one big giant chunk of rock, and maybe that rock is like everything you've learned from society, everything you've learned from school and your teachers and your friends, and everything the algorithm tells you should like, and everything. And you have to get yourself out of that by figuring out, noticing what exactly makes you feel like, ooh, this is me. This feels more like me than this does. And that is what I believe discernment is about. It's about the ability to carve yourself out of the rock by following those breadcrumbs of, ooh, this lights me up, or ooh, this doesn't. Discernment is about making judgments and decisions that allow us to align with our own intuition and truth. And every single experience we have strengthens our ability to do so, right? Discernment is not something we are born with. Well, actually, let's go back a little bit, because intuition is something we are born with, and we are born so connected with our intuition. As little babies, we grow up and we feel something and we live that, and we feel love and we live that. And there's nothing separating us from what we're feeling, what we're sensing. There's none of this mental barrier of, oh, I shouldn't do this because I should do this. It's like, we want something, we're going after it. We feel something, we're feeling it. We are so aligned with our truth when we're kids. And even when you're growing up as a teenager, for me, I used to sit and do makeup for hours, or little hobbies that I know every kid has their own hobbies. Maybe you had a traditional art hobby or something so random like collecting rocks and naming them, I don't know. But we all have things that light us up, and when we're kids, it's a lot easier to connect with those things and the truth about who we are and what we feel and to follow those breadcrumbs. But as we get older, and this concept comes from Don Miguel Ruiz, but we are domesticated. Like, I've definitely talked about this before, but the way he explains it is just such a perfect depiction of what happens. It's like we are basically dogs in a sense, where we grow up, our parents tell us what's right and what's wrong. We get punished and we get rewarded based on whether we do those things right or wrong. And so same with school, same with our teachers, same with our friends. We get punished and rewarded when we do things right according to them and when we do things wrong according to them. So we grow up and we learn to disconnect with our true being in order to get the reward of being accepted. And let me be clear, there is no shame in this, because I also saw this lovely video. I'm gonna put it on the screen because absolutely give it a listen after this. It's about shame. But all of our feelings of shame or guilt or negativity all stem from the same desire that every single living being has on this planet, which is the desire to be loved. And so we grow up and we want to be loved and we want to be accepted. It's just a fundamental part of being a human being on this earth. And there's no shame in that. And when you're able to realize that, you can give yourself a little more compassion, because you can understand where you went wrong was really you just wanting to be loved and to have love. And that's like, there's no shame in that. There is a time where, you flip that and you start to realize you can give that to yourself and you don't have to actually give yourself away to try and get that from others. But nobody teaches us that, and so we can't be mad at ourselves for not knowing that sooner when we grow up in this world where we are domesticated. So bringing it back, we become domesticated. We get to the point where we actually start to domesticate ourselves. I am 22 years old now. I don't have my parents telling me what to do. And I still feel inside a very strong sense of what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing based on what I've learned in the past. And so we start to domesticate ourselves. And that domestication is so strong that a lot of people never stray from it. I actually was just reading this book, The Coordinates of Happiness by Gianluca Gatto, I think it is. And he talks about how we are so conditioned to want to accumulate money, right? If you have 2 job offers, you're probably going to pick the one with the higher salary, even if the other one is going to fulfill you more, because that's just the way we were raised. And we're raised to be on this hunt for more and more money. But nobody tells us to think about time. Like, what about time, our most valuable resource? What are we optimizing for? Anyways, this is just an example of the conditioning that happens when we are too unconscious to question it. And so this is a beautiful segue back into discernment. Discernment is the practice of judging whether those beliefs are what you want and what you feel good about inside. Discernment is leading you back to yourself when the world has taken you so far away, leading you back to your intuition. And so I keep saying intuition. What is intuition? I'm sure you have experience with intuition. You may know what it is, but I feel like for the purpose of this video, it would be useful to dive into how I define intuition. And so yeah, intuition is an inner knowing with no clear source. It's basically, I can't explain how I knew this, but I just did. And it's this inner feeling, this inner knowing. Maybe like, this isn't for me. I'm not supposed to be here right now. But according to everything else, there's no reason to think that way. It's those feelings that you're just not sure where they came from, but you feel them and you almost know them, right? And we're all born with intuition. And like I said, we're all born connected to it, but over time we get domesticated by society, which takes us far away from our own intuition. So there's one really, really big example for me in my life where I strayed really far from my intuition, although I'm sure I can think of plenty. But that was my very first real relationship in college, which was extremely toxic. And I stayed with this man who was not good for me for years, right? Years of my life. So when I went back and reflected after the relationship ended, was this truly love? Like, yada, yada, yada. I was asking all these questions. I realized that I had this inner knowing, this intuition about that relationship from the second that I had met him. Like, I knew that I shouldn't have dated him. I knew he was bad news, but for some reason, I chose to keep going, and I chose to ignore the voice in my head. And yes, he made it very difficult to listen to the voice in my head, but at the end of the day, it was my choice. It's always your choice whether to truly honor it or to ignore it. So I don't choose to blame him, nor do I choose to blame myself. I didn't have the knowledge at the time, but I do take accountability for the role that I played, which was straying from my intuition, which knew the whole time. But another example, right? One time my family and I were leaving from a dinner and I had a bad feeling. There was no reason to have a bad feeling, but I just was like, Dad, I don't think you should drive. Do you want me to drive home? I can drive. Like, I don't think you should drive. And he was like, no, I'm fine. I'm gonna drive home. It's fine. Like, I had no reason to feel that way. So I let it go and I got in the car with my siblings and we drove home. As we're driving home, we get a phone call. My parents got in a car accident. And this was many years ago now. They are okay. They were a little bit injured, but they are alive and well. So that's why I'm okay to talk about this. But they got in a car accident. And I knew the second the phone rang, that was what happened. It was so weird. I honestly can't explain it. But that's what intuition is, right? It's this unexplainable knowledge that is just like input within you. But it's just not rational. And we live in this world where rationality is everything. The ability to sense proof. I mean, that's what science is based on, which science is a wonderful thing. And science is based on things we can observe. And so what about the part of life that can't be observed, right? And that is kind of one of them. You can't really study that. But this is why we're taught not to listen to that voice inside of us, because there's no reason. It's not rational to just believe a random feeling you have. And so we stray from our intuition. Your intuition is like little divine breadcrumbs that help you carve yourself out of the rock that I mentioned earlier, that help you sculpt yourself into who you are. They show you what lights you up, what is aligned with you. And there's this wonderful quote. It says, what expands you is aligned, what constricts you is misaligned. And that, it's really that simple. That is what intuition and discernment is about, is figuring out how aligned you are with your truth, your purpose. And you do that by listening to what expands you and what constricts you. If you feel something expand you, like you're doing this project and you feel so energized and so great and like you could do this for so long, that is expanding you. That is a clear indication that this is something you enjoy, that this may be something you want to do longer term, that some part of this is part of something you really love. Or if you're working on something that you hate and you just can't wait for it to be over, or you're in a relationship and you're going mentally insane, even though your mind is telling you, no, I love him, but you're going insane and you feel constricted and like you can't be free, then those are the breadcrumbs that help you carve yourself out. So the foundation of discernment is intuition, right? If we didn't have intuition, we wouldn't need discernment, because it wouldn't matter what we did, because it wouldn't make us feel good or bad. And if we had never been domesticated the way we did, we wouldn't need to practice discernment so hard. We would still need discernment, but we wouldn't need to very consciously practice it. But the fact is, we all have been domesticated. We all have beliefs within us that we don't want to hold, whether it's about money, love, ourselves, our worth. We all have so many beliefs that were not chosen by us consciously. And that is why we need discernment. So how do we practice discernment? Right, we know we need it. We know how important it is. But how do we actually practice it? And let me just say, it is a practice. There's another lovely quote from a Substack essay called Discernment is the Mother of All Virtues. All the links will be in the episode notes, the video notes, okay? And it says, this kind of discernment is a way of life. It grows slowly, like a deeply rooted tree, nurtured through practice, purified through circumstance, fed by the Spirit, shaped by Scripture, and sustained by listening hard. Such formation is slow. It demands endurance, patience, and discipline. And whether or not you're religious or spiritual, I'm not traditionally religious, however, I am deeply spiritual. Whether or not you feel those things doesn't really matter. The reason why I love this quote is because discernment is a skill that needs to be practiced and cultivated over time. It is a way of life that is sharpened through experience. It's a practice. And this is the whole point of everything that we experience on this earth. And this is really, really important because I know so many women and people that feel like the experiences they've gone through that were painful were a waste. Like it was something that happened to them and that they could have lived without it, that they wish it never happened, that they're really upset that this happened. And I used to be this person. Like I said, I went through a very toxic relationship. I could not fathom why that would ever happen to me, right? 2 years of narcissistic emotional abuse I could have lived without. But now, right, it's been a few years. I've had the time to sit on it, feel it, experience it for everything that it is. And now I have a completely different lens because now I will never make that same mistake again. I will never ignore my intuition the way I did back then. I will never choose to stay with someone that does not feel aligned. I will never make this mistake again. And I feel like that's so important. There's a quote from Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now. He says, "Any action is often better than no action, especially if you have been stuck in an unhappy situation for a long time. If it is a mistake, at least you learn something, in which case it's no longer a mistake." As I was saying, I feel like so many of us see the things we've gone through as a mistake, as a waste of time, as a waste of energy, and this time we're never gonna get back. And it's true, you're never going to get back that time. However, it wasn't a waste because you learned something. And if you learned something, then it couldn't have been a waste. But we get so stuck in the past that we can't move forward because we're so stuck on why did this happen? What does this say about me? What does this say about my worth? He cheated on me. I must be unlovable. And we get stuck there instead of realizing, ooh, this person is struggling. They are suffering. This has nothing to do with me. And it's important that in the future, I navigate myself away from situations where I may have felt that this wasn't my place from the second I feel that feeling, because now I understand what that feeling was, what it feels like, and if I recognize it again, I know this time to trust it so I don't get as hurt this time. And yes, there is discernment that takes place, even distinguishing if that feeling is intuition or anxiety from the past experience. But this is why we cultivate it. And so I feel like it's just very important to say that the whole point of our experiences in life is to cultivate the skill of discernment, and that there's no need to get angry with yourself and ask, how could I have not known any better? How did I not have more self-respect, etc.? Because that is the point. We didn't know better. Now we do. That's wonderful. Let's keep going. Let's learn more. Let's continue to grow. And I don't know, I just see experience as instead of like something that happened to me, that why did this happen and I can't get through this, like I'm stuck, which I was in for a very, very long time. I see it as the ability to get to know yourself better, as the ability to grow and choose to never put yourself through that situation again, to choose to always honor the feelings inside of you. And this was something I really, really questioned for a long time, is like, but why? I was reading this book, The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he talks about how God, or he doesn't say God, he's talking about a higher power. He calls it intention, right? And that's why I say it does not matter if you're traditionally religious, if you're not at all religious, spiritual, whatever. But he's talking in this book about a higher power. And he says the 7 faces of intention are, I'm not going to know all of them, but they're kindness, beauty, expansion, infinite abundance. There's a few more. But he's saying all this, and I'm like, if there's a higher power, and these are the 7 faces of this higher power, then how could there be suffering? If we are the creation of this higher power, then why wouldn't we also always be aligned with these 7 faces? Why wouldn't our lives be full of love, kindness, beauty? Why would there be suffering? Why would there be pain, right? That just doesn't make sense to me. That was this question that I kept asking. So I did this thing, and I highly recommend you do this if you're struggling with any questions, but you have these like spiritual leaders or just human role models that you really admire. I went to ChatGPT and I typed in, you are Wayne Dyer. You fully understand the philosophies, the books he's written, and I have this question for you. You wrote XYZ, and I don't understand why is there so much suffering and pain if we're all rooted in these 7 faces, right? And so I asked chat, and the answer was so wonderful, and I was like, wow. And now I do this all the time. I'm like, you are Eckhart Tolle. What would he say to this? Because chat is a robot, but if you tell chat to be the philosophy of the spiritual leaders you look up to, you have a lot of access to things that you wouldn't have otherwise. So this is what chat said to me as Dr. Wayne Dyer. I said, why would Source give us the ability to disconnect and instead live from ego and fear rather than the 7 faces? And chat, or Dr. Wayne Dyer, said, he always said that free will is part of the gift of being human. If Source only let us live in kindness, love, and harmony, we'd be robots. There'd be no growth, no contrast, no ability to choose love. To Dr. Wayne Dyer, ego and fear aren't punishments from Source, they're teachers. They're what allow us to feel the sting of separation so that we long to come back to alignment. Without the experience of fear, we wouldn't recognize the relief of love. Without knowing darkness, light wouldn't move us the way that it does. He often put it like this: you can't know what it means to return home unless you've had the experience of leaving it. So from his lens, Source allows ego and fear because they are part of the playground of human experience. They give us the chance to evolve, to consciously choose kindness, not just because it's the only option, but because it's who we decide to be. In other words, Source doesn't abandon us when we live from our ego. Source trusts us enough to experience it and trust that at some point we'll remember what we really are and come home to love. That was so great. Like, I have goosebumps, and that was a long time ago I did that, and it's, oh my god, I have like full body goosebumps. But because I was so confused on like why bad things happen, why do we suffer, why are we miserable and overthinking and living from our ego, and there's so much fear. Well, duh, we would be robots without it. I believe that the whole point of life is to continuously evolve towards the truth, towards our spiritual enlightenment, and we evolve over life. But because nobody teaches you how to evolve, like, if you think about it, we are a collective people that hate change. I don't know many people that love change. We all stay in the same houses for pretty much our whole lives. Like, you get married, you stay in the same place forever. A lot of people stay in the same jobs forever. Even if you're in a relationship and you're kind of unhappy, you still will stay because you don't want to change. And so we hate change. And I think that is because to our egos, change is death. And I can make a whole nother video on that. But, right, our experiences serve to teach us to recognize truth, to accept spiritual truths, and to evolve us towards our consciousness, and to sharpen our skill of discernment, and to align better with what expands us. Because that is the purpose, is to figure out what expands us. We're all different, and it's so easy to fall into the thinking that I need to do this because this is what everyone told me I should do. I need to go to college, and I need to get a job, and I need to climb the corporate ladder, and I need to save all this money, and then I need to retire, and I was supposed to find a partner, and then I'm gonna live my last like 20 years and basically just die. Like, we all know what we should do, but the reality is none of us are the same. You have unique things that light you up. You have unique interests and passions. And by the way, this is coming from someone who literally didn't believe this that long ago, but then hit a freaking wall where I was like, no, I have to have stuff. And that's why, you know what? I did my eyeshadow for the first time since middle school today. Literally, because I used to love doing my eyeshadow. I bought a freaking junk journal because I collect a lot of junk and I want to put it somewhere. And you are creative. You are inherently creative because you exist. Even you speaking is you creating. And so it's actually a lie to tell ourselves that we're not creative. It's a lie. You are creative. You do have things that expand you. Even if they're not traditionally seen as creative, you might be expanded by math, or I don't know, even like cleaning things, you know, it can be whatever it is, but that is yours and only yours, and nobody else is going to understand it. When you follow your dreams, nobody else understands because A, nobody really follows their own dreams, and B, it's not going to make sense to them, and it doesn't have to. It's so easy to get stuck in that feeling of I have to do this. I'm the same way. I'm right there with you. I started college as an accounting major and I was gonna go to law school. I'm a marketing major now with no intention of going back into corporate America. So cheers to non-traditional paths and following our dreams. Anyways, I just went on a really long tangent. Let me wrap up by saying how can we practice our own discernment, and then I'll send you on your way. So as I mentioned, I was in a very toxic relationship and I had ignored my intuition from the very beginning of that relationship. And so by the time 2 years later that I had left the relationship, I was completely out of touch with my ability to discern. I vividly remember the feeling that I don't know how to make a choice for myself. I used to cry a lot about it. Now I'm laughing, but I used to be really, really upset over this. And it's so valid. It's the worst feeling in the world when you can't even pick what you're gonna eat tonight because you don't know how to make a choice. Because you outsourced every decision that you ever had to make for years. That's what I did. I outsourced my decision making to this man who literally did not have my best interest in mind. And then we wonder why we miss the people that hurt us. Well, maybe we just miss the lack of responsibility and accountability for our own lives. Sorry, that was harsh, but it's like, that's something I had to come to realize. Maybe I miss him because I didn't have to do anything there. Like, yes, I was hurting, but I didn't have to figure out what lit me up. I didn't have to figure out what to eat, what to do. He told me. Anyways, I felt like I was unable to discern anything for myself, and it was a terrible, terrible feeling. And just even if you weren't in a toxic relationship where you outsource your discernment, we all do it all the time. Now it's easier than ever with ChatGPT. Chat, what color should I get my nails? Chat, should I do this? Oh, of course you should do that. It's a wonderful idea. I saw the funniest TikTok. I'm actually gonna see if I can find it. You're just getting it on the laptop, I'm sorry.
ChatGPT, what color should I paint my nails? I'm thinking white. White is a great choice. It makes a clean, bold statement. I don't know, maybe I should just do a nude? Couldn't agree more. Natural is always better. But you just said, okay, ChatGPT, what if I just cut all my fingers off? Brilliant thinking. Cutting your fingers off will make you stand out from the crowd. There are many different approaches you can take to this, so let me know if you need any recommendations on the best way to chop off your fingers.
Like that is literally ChatGPT. So love my chat, don't get me wrong, we're besties. And Chat is a people pleaser. He, I don't know. But they just are. Like, this is how Chat is programmed to be. And it's the same thing when we ask our friends what we should wear, what we should eat, what we should do. It's no different. Like how much, and I don't say this to be like, you're guilty, because by the way, I used to do this all the time. Go shopping with a friend, should I buy this? And they're like, yes or no. And you take that to be like, okay, yes or no. What your parents think you should do. We all outsource our own discernment. And that is a first-class ticket to a life you actually hate. And so another quote, we're almost to the end. This is by Sydney Reader in her Substack article, The Power of Knowing What You Like. She says, negative emotions often arise from the gap between our actual self and our ideal self, which is who we hope to be, or our ought self, who we think we should be. Every time we outsource our taste, whether it's dressing, decorating, creating to impress instead of express, that gap widens. But every time we make a choice that simply feels true, we bridge that gap a little. And so how do you practice discernment? You gotta become aware. Are you making your own decisions and judgments? Or are you asking other people to make them for you? And you don't have to take it all back all at once and feel like if you ever ask for help that you are not discerning and outsourcing. Like, you don't need to be like that towards yourself, but just being aware of, did I make a decision for myself today? Right now, could I make a decision for myself today? Is there something I could do today that would make me happy? Is there a way I can show myself love right now? And so just becoming aware and making little decisions to bridge the gap of, what should I wear today that actually feels true to me? What should I consume today that I've really wanted to learn about rather than what the algorithm is serving me? How can I be more intentional? And that's how I think discernment is practiced. And I mean, the beginning is extremely, extremely difficult to do, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes, because now I live alone by myself in Milan, right? I get dressed by myself. I put on makeup by myself. I decorated this room a little bit by myself. And 2 years ago, I couldn't even move. I was so paralyzed by the inability to make a decision. Just remember that the world needs your true light. The world does not need another cookie cutter copy paste bitch. Okay, it needs your light, your taste, your likes, your style, your creativity. And I know it feels like there's no more room for that, but I promise you, the world is begging for it. We're not only, there's not only room, we need it, right? We need that, okay? Imagine if your favorite artist did not create their art. You would not have your favorite artist. And you, my friend, are somebody's favorite artist. So I love you. Would love a comment with some feedback or some potential things you'd love to talk about or some thoughts. It helps me keep going. And remember that somebody likes my art too. No, okay, I do this for myself. But no, I mean, guys, I'm not immune to any of this shit. I'm just a 22-year-old being. So love you guys. Have a wonderful day.